That was sudden. Oh, welcome to RPG with DBJ. Of course, I am your host, DBJ. And according to the title, it's like, we won! Yeah! Eh, what do we do now? Um, yeah, if for those who haven't heard, and over the weekend, um, couldn't do a video, of course. Busy. But we do this Monday through Friday, about an hour of just talking out in the open, just getting things off of our chest, talking about anything and everything tabletop RPG and tabletop RPG adjacent. And for those who haven't heard, and of course you've heard that, the word on the street is that we won. We won against Hasbro and WoTC. They released Specifically, they released the SRD 5.1, which has some additional information that a number of your favorite content creators have gone through. It's like 403 pages. It's a little longer than it had been, and they released it under Creative Commons, which makes the OGL a little redundant, but they left the OGL 1.0A as is and then released the SRD into Creative Commons. And I think they did that because they knew that if they tried, even if they put the word irrevocable in it, we didn't trust them. And Creative Commons has been around, it's pretty bulletproof. It's been around for a while. So guys, yeah, Death mentions, I guess it's a matter of perspective on whether it's a win or not. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today before we get into other stuff. During the week, I was like, yeah, we won, but now what? You ever see those movies where like the good guys defeat the bad guys in like a titanic battle and everyone's like screaming like, yeah. And then, you know, it fades to black because you got to get the credits going because someone in the background's going like, what do we do now that everything's destroyed and laid to waste and stuff? But something came across my feed, and I've got to maybe this is a better intro because I got to share this. I got to share the good news before we talk about like, well, maybe we didn't and stuff. And I get it because that's what we do here. I got to share this. I've got to. All right. Yeah, you got to see this. Did we do this? We sure did. We sure did. Yeah. Yeah, we won the slap fight. I don't know if you guys ever slap fought in in grade school and high school, but this I just had to share this because it just reminded me of this. Ouch. Ow. RXF, it's called. RXF. What? Professional slap fighting. Bam! Ooh, woke you up. Hey, WoTC, here it comes. Hey, WoTC, here's what we do. Boom! 20. Gotcha. Oh, man. Oh, okay. Should I stop? We're gonna stop this. wait, one more. Out. Okay, I just had to be a little silly. I had to. Sorry. I I had to do that. Sorry. That's me. That's the evil side of me. All right, let's get into some more serious stuff. But no, honestly, that anyway, it came across my feed, YouTube, whatnot, and it's about it's actual professional Russian slap fighting. And I didn't show it because it's pretty bloody. There's a clip of a guy who just gets hammered in like a 25 minute slap fighting. It's hilarious. But anyway, you guys are the co-hosts. You guys keep me on track. So let's get into it. Um, Druden says, it was funny. I watched your video from Friday after the news dropped. Yeah, yeah. Maybe a little bit out of time. I suppose it would be pretty interesting to go back like in a year or like even 3 or 5 years and watch the videos being produced from like the end of December or early January till like within this month's time. Wild, wild. Um, Death goes on to say, the damage done to the relationship between the fan base and Wizards of the Coast is immense and will take years, if even possible, to recover. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about because while I'm sitting here going like, yeah, F you mothers, raising my fists in the air and there's confetti and all that kind of stuff dropping down out of the sky. But do I want to will I tune back into some of my favorite creators like Dungeon Dudes and um uh Dungeon Craft and a bunch of these other guys who and ladies that do really excellent fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons lore, character creations, um material, and will we like yay, like kind of subtly raise our fists? Are we going to have attitudes with other people who are like, "Woo, glad that's over. Now I can get back into producing fifth edition material"? I don't know. I don't, uh, will the momentum of other content being created or other gaming systems and mechanics and like will that continue to rise up and go, yeah, we don't trust you. Yeah, great, we won, but we're going to keep your ass down. We're going to steal this 80 to 90% market share that you have, that's the kind of thing I'm not worried about, but I hope we personally, I hope we keep the momentum of creators stretching their RPG juices to other systems or making their own systems or having a license outside of this. But I don't know. Almighty Almighty Nine says, but they showed their hand and they can't regain my trust in the brand. You know what? I I'm not going to argue with that. I don't trust them either, and I think it behooves us not to link ourselves to a single point of failure. If we're going to dangle by a chain, we need about three or four of those things wrapped around our waist, right? And Wizards of the Coast happens to own one of those chain links, and to be a truly evergreen content creator is to be in this broader base, and I think just linking ourselves to them, I'm with you. Also, there's the difference of like, do we continue to play fifth edition but spend zero money with Hasbro and just go after third party content, which is a lot of it, Nord Games and Cubicle 7 and Pelgrane and so on, Mongoose and MCDM and like, I mean, I don't know. I say yes, support them, but if you're moving past your own table to the outer world, creating content, where's it? How will how will that land? How will you think it'll land? How would you promote it? Will there be backlash? I don't know. I don't know. Zamara says it was a victory. The tabletop RPG. I'm sorry, I'm not posting up your comments. I apologize for that. Let me go because I might go back here and do this. It was a victory. The tabletop community is currently more united than ever, and more people know that other systems exist. But we are back at the mercy of the less serious members, the players. Yeah, some of them may not be as invested as the rest of us are, and you know, there's all kinds of things that may happen along the way. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the player base cares as much, or will they just go along and go, listen, I'm going to go whoever's storytelling, narrating, DMing, sitting around sitting around the campfire running games. Will they go to that, or are they just waiting for us to stop celebrating Uh, you know, wake up from our drunken stupor from the celebration and go, okay, can we go back to playing fifth edition? I don't know. Yeah, I guess we can all go eat shawarma now. And an improv ending scene for the Avengers movie that's pretty hilarious. Just watching a bunch of highly paid actors just eat shawarma while somebody in the background sweeping up. Mike mentions my plan for this victory: stay the course. This course, I mean, the course is continue to support third party creators, explore new games, and continue to keep WoTC in the goddamn corner. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I feel like I think all of you guys kind of know why they did it. I'm going to give you my presumption as to why they did it as an armchair RPG tabletop enthusiast. I'll put I'll say my reasoning for this is that we're they're going to flow into their first quarter earnings, January, February, March, and they needed to stop the bleeding. Is what I feel. And in terms of the bleeding, it's not just Dungeons and Dragons. They've caught. I mean, excuse me, not just that product, but Hasbro has caught the attention of the media. You know, when you start hitting Forbes magazine and investment, law firms dipping in their feet into what's going on, and then you have like marketing firms and shareholders going like, "What are you doing? You're burning down the house." They Hasbro has also had extremely low earnings from the rest of their intellectual properties, toys and other things. And they've got a movie coming out that they need this movie to no, they can't make it break even. They've got to earn money on this because this movie was supposed to be an evergreen source of income, meaning like it would play in movies and then we would rent it and we'd pay for it and then we would look forward to yet another movie that would increase in value, kind of like I don't know, Fast and Furious. And so I think a lot of that came from above, and the pressure was like, "The f are you doing? Give the nerds what they want, and get out of this whatever it is that you think you're trying to do." Yeah. Plus, they spent a lot of money on they. Let's not think that businesses have eternal pockets, deep pockets. A lot of times they've got to borrow that money. And in order when they borrow that money against their own value to pay for something, they got to pay it back. Yeah. Druden says I would take I would take a shawarma. Me too. But I think it's not over yet. I would not be surprised if the next edition will not have an OGL or CC. Yeah, an open gaming license or Creative Commons. I think at this point, if they even considered it, I'm thinking zero chance of an OGL or a CC. I'm thinking there won't even be a hint of one. They're not going to announce one for the new one D&D, whatever title they give it. And if we go back, fifth WotC has never considered their own game fifth edition. It's always been just Dungeons and Dragons. We call it that, and now under the brand new Creative Commons under the 5.1 SRD or System Reference Document, they mention the words in quotes compatible with fifth edition, but they've never used that. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Did you see that? Um, I'm sorry, getting to our co-host here. Yeah, Doctor Turd Midget says the real winner of all this is Paizo. Did you hear that Pathfinder ran out of books in 2 weeks and they had a stockpile, according to their numbers, for 8 months? That's crazy. I love it. I love it so much. Although there is a slightly dark shadow to that. Someone said, awesome that they ran out of 8 months worth of stock in 2 weeks, but then what was their sales of books over those 8 months, right? Like, why weren't they selling before? And so it may come up. We might do a big one of these big turn like circular things in our community where people run to Paizo and Pathfinder, which I have zero problem with, and then slowly leave it because it may not be their cup of tea for whatever reason, and then maybe flow into whatever Cobalt, the Black Flag system, or whatever other systems that might come up. MCDM, yeah. CNBC was on it. Motley Fool, yeah. Forbes, a bunch of other purely institutions that are adjacent to what we know of in our community have been picking up on the story. Financial news, marketing news, legal news, uh, social media news. That they're channels who never talked about role playing games and Dungeons and Dragons, and they've got multiple videos out there. The Legal Eagle talked about it. Come on, what's he got, like 6 million subscribers or whatever? Got it a little bit wrong, a little bit, but that's just because he's an aside. But yeah, yeah. Juden says my guess is that this might have threatened the movie in a view month. Yeah, I already made predictions how that will get review bombed. Oh, didn't even think about that. Review bombing, protesting it. Like, so, I heard someone say, "Well, say, listen, we could still see the movie if you just avoid the first 2 weeks, because the earnings on the first 2 weeks, that first weekend, maybe the second weekend, are, dare I say, paramount to its continued existence. All the sales afterwards for movies, there tends to be a drop off, right? There's always that slope to drop off, and they want to see less than a 50% drop off. But yeah, the movie's already been paid for. The actors have been paid. The crew's been. I mean, the money's already spent. But it's an movies are an investment just like anything else. It's 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 a huge gamble, but movies are investment property, and yeah, if they lose money on it, they're not going to make another one, which is a shame because I mean, I'd like to see Dungeons and Dragons movies in the pop culture. But why did they have to do this now? Anyway, Death says, Death's Angel Shadow says, oh, I'm sure Paramount or pressure on them, Paramount had pressure on them to make this problem go away. Yeah, put pressure on them. Yeah, put pressure on them to make this problem go away. And I definitely agree with you there. Yeah, I want to make sure you understood that too. I saw it. Yeah, Chris Cow tipped his hand too early. He had he waited to the release of the movie, investors may not care. The leak changed all that. I agree with you. And here I'm going to continue to say this again. They didn't need to threaten the 1.0A OGL at all to do what they're doing. We would have been their promoters. You cannot tell me there wouldn't be content creators out there who purchase their way into the VTT and things that are coming out. We would have had people reviewing the movie. We would have wondered how to make how to do character creations for what. I wonder what level Barty would be. Maybe third level, and somebody else is like, he's probably eighth level. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, 8 months of sales in 2 weeks. Yeah, going to continue to call it sixth edition. I've heard people wanting to call it like five and one half, not 5.5, five and one half. All right, let me see if I can understand this one, Mike, because I know you've only got so many characters. 6E may or may not be compatible, and I could care less. Yeah. Will any of us play the game and promote sixth edition? Even without an OGL, let's understand that they own the intellectual property, and 99% of other companies do not release their property to the public at all. So we're lucky to have it. That being said, if you're going to have it, they shouldn't have threatened it, because we were there no matter how many millions of dollars, what, maybe 20 millions of dollars, 20 millions of dollars, $20 million total over 20 years, maybe more, $25 million has funneled not into their pockets, but into our community. But that's how much money you would have spent on advertising dollars. Okay, 25 million, let's say $20 million spread over a bunch of content creators over 23 years. So if you had 23, that'd be $1 million a year divided amongst all the other people. They came out pretty cheap for Critical Role, fifth edition, all this. It's us promoting the game. It's marketing dollars, and they just did. Anyway, Mike goes on to say whether or not it has an OGL or an SRD or CCL or a BLT or an SOS or mouse. WoTC basically 4E'd 6E before its release. Yeah. Even if they had a SOS, a BLT, I could use a BLT. But yeah, you're absolutely right with that one. Yeah, like it doesn't matter. It's like they 4E'd the whole game before it even started. Like, okay, today, are any of us really going to I just don't see any of us promoting this sixth edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know. I maybe. Anyway, Zamara says, "Well, I can easily say that it's because a lot of local game stores, okay, LGSs, stopped carrying more than the very basic of basic books for Pathfinder, only their core rule book." Oh, talking about the selling out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of gaming stores didn't. Let's be honest. If Dungeons and Dragons has like in 70 to 80 to 90% market share, those are the only books they're going to sell. They're going to sell the with the black spine with the red tattered tatter flag on the side of it, or yeah, there would be no reason for them to sell even the second largest gaming group's materials, or even keep it up to date if it's not selling well. And that's Pathfinder, the second biggest gorilla in the tribe, in the clan. Zamar says Barnes and Noble barely had any of their books, and a huge section dedicated to D&D. Probably the same will all probably the same will all surviving books a million. Yeah. Here we have half price books, which that has nothing. They sell other kinds of things, but I maybe we'll see a glut of those books show up in the half price books here in the Midwest. Okay, Archive Nethys says just going on Archive Nethys user metrics. Let's say we lose 50% of the interest that OGL generated in Pathfinder 2. Even in that case, we will still have double the Pathfinder 2 player base. Yeah. And listen, if you here's the investment bias. As people buy the Pathfinder books, they're going to want to use them, right? And it's still Dungeons. And I'm using the term. I'm going to use the term D&D very loosely here, much like the OSR. If we like to make a separation of the OSR, they're still playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's still got a base mechanism in it, a space engine, and they're just playing different iterations of it, different editions and modified editions thereof. They're still playing Dungeons and Dragons. We all own the game. It's just now, like as people are spending money over a Pathfinder, I think they're going to want to play it. And there's enough of a player base for other content creators to. I think it would be an investment for them to make videos and actual plays and character creations and monster lore and that kind of thing. Mike goes on to say, regarding Paizo sales, I believe Pathfinder isn't second to 5e in sales. That would be Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is massive in Europe and Asia. And we haven't really talked about overseas, and I wonder how much impact it's going to have overseas, because I wouldn't know how to measure that. Yeah, I mean, like for to give a little bit of information away, like I mean, I'm producing material for Call of Cthulhu too, in parallel to fifth edition, or maybe now it's going to be pretty much agnostic, because I'm still going to scrape the SRD stuff out of it. But yeah, even though I've rewritten 90% of the SRD material that I try, sausage being made. What I do is I pull up the SRD file, the 5.0, and then anything I need, like what darkness is or tight space is, because I'm the cinematic environments guy, right? Third pillar, I love all that stuff. So what I would do is I would go in or find a magic item or a creature or something, and then what I would do is I would cut and paste it. And just because of how the SRD is made, it would never format directly from into a Google file. So it'd be out of whack, and then that would just give me more of an incentive to rewrite what's written, so it's maybe either more natural language or fits better, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've already rewritten everything that's in that book. Not everything, but everything that I used in the SRD. But I'm still going to scrape it out of the stuff that I have. Zamar says, back when my local gaming store was still around, I tried to order non D&D books all the time. The books are too expensive baseline. I had to order direct most of the time. And I see now a lot more often, at least for Kickstarters, some of the bigger games, Nord Games, Monty Cook, and a bunch of them have in their order forms like, if you're a business, you can order 6 copies, 8 copies to go into the stores. It's still expensive overall because the gaming stores really need to have a much higher profit margin. If they're buying books at $42 and they're selling them for 50, and they still have to promote them and get it's not a high profit margin to keep the lights on. Mike Gould continues, Archives of Nethys is online and free for those wanting to play Pathfinder Second Edition, and it's supported by Paizo, so it's going nowhere. Yeah, and even I did my thing with N World. If you go to A5E, is it still in beta, but A5E dot tools, is it still? It's, it's still in. Come on, let's go back to the base rule. Base. Yep, there it is. Yeah, it's still there. Yep, yep. Let's see if I could put this in here. Let's. John Wright mentions if 1,000 Hasbro employees are to be sacked, I didn't even bring that up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because of low sales, they're just took, was it 15% of their staff or something like that? Anyway, if 1,000 Hasbro employees are to be sacked, then they should start with Cynthia Williams and Chris Cow. As long as the architects of this dumpster fire train wreck remain in charge, we can't trust WoTC. You know what? I didn't think so, but we might see a top down changeover. I could see them. Okay, shifts in management are always terrible for stock unless the shareholders see terrible management, in which case a lot of times they'll let them stay there for a moment while the stockholders search around for better. They try to recruit from other successful entrepreneurships, right? Like someone who's the head of Coca-Cola or Charmin Tissues, or they always find these individuals and they'll bring them in to try to stabilize the stock to keep it from like fluctuating too much or dropping. So I could see that. I could see them doing a clean slate when they find the individuals that they can push into that region. I don't think they're going to be able to pull from their own employee staff. I think I have a feeling internally they're done. Yeah, they're done. Yeah, Death Angel says to non-gamers, tabletop is all D&D to them. Yeah, it doesn't matter what edition, it doesn't matter the rule set. They just see Dungeons and Dragons. It's really weird. And I think it's not weird, but I think it's weird that Dungeons and Dragons has kind of created an expression of what fantasy gaming is, that even things that are not owned by them can come across as being owned by them, like a red dragon or hobgoblins or dark elves or something. Like we have the legal right to use those, a lot of that terminology, but we can't express it the same way. And I think Dungeons and Dragons has expressed certain things that are in our like mythology and such, that it's become like, I don't know, Xerox or Kleenex, or Coca-Cola or something like that. Now Zamars says, I feel that content creators will need to stifle their creativity. Really? Okay. For a huge while, stop making conversations for D&D and even 5e and find the system most appropriate and make homebrew for that. That's going to hurt a lot of people. No, I agree with you, but that's going to hurt a lot of people. Here's that link, by the way, guys. Not you guys, but for those who see this episode later or tune in, yeah, it's A5E dot tools, and the five is the number five, not spelled out. That's for Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition, which I was a small part in helping to add material to Trials and Treasures, which is the magic item book, and the third pillar book, which I think is excellent, but not too many people really heard about it. Death Angel says, "Have you compared the first two pages of the SRD 5.1 versions?" No, I couldn't find it. It went to a dead link when I tried to get it. Um, the OGL versus the CCA. OGL version is two full pages of legalese, terms, what IP is theirs, etc. CC, yep, the Creative Commons, it's less than a third of a page. Yeah, part two is blank. And the reason is because the Creative Commons, and I don't know all the numbers, like CC BY 4.0, something like that. The Creative Commons license 4.0, it is understood that it is multiple pages if you go directly to the link, but it has been tested outside of our gaming organization, community, business, and whatnot. That's why a lot of the creators that are going over it are like, wait a minute, the OGL is kind of redundant. The CC is just like half a page, and you could just put it on there, and it tells you you can legally just say, listen, here's the link to get to the rest of the CC, but it's irrevocable and perpetual. So yeah, yep, they just basically gave us the rules for free. Like, and when I say for free, the the OGL, which is a full page, actually had restrictions on it that even the Creative Commons license doesn't have. They're minor restrictions, but there are certain restrictions about the use of the symbols of Dungeons and Dragons. There's of course restrictions about you can't use their IP, but we already knew that. Uh, you know, you can't use proper names, that kind of thing. Zamara says, that reminds me, I must shill for my friends. Okay. Songwoven is hosting a Level Up 5e live play on Twitch Fridays at 8 p.m. Link in the Discord. Okay. All right. I haven't, well, I can bring up the Discord because normally when I broadcast the show, I broadcast on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And I used to have Discord in there, but the minute I put Discord, my at the time my streaming would just drop to red. It was just like it was bottled up, and so until my high speed comes in, they fixed my regular thing, but until my high speed comes in, yeah, I'm gonna have to not do that live. uh Death Angel mentions Hasbro is having issues with their windowless packaging, Star Wars and other toys not selling, etc. Really? Why wouldn't they just put it in a blister pack so you could see it? That's weird. Every soft drink in the South is Coke. I don't even like Coca Cola. Yeah, everything. Yep. You know how we use like Kleenex and well, we don't use. Well, some people still use Xerox as a Xerox copy, which is a proper name. I didn't know. I know Hasbro was having issues with their sales, but I didn't know why. I mean, we've got uh, we've got issues with worldwide materials issues and backups in terms of shipping and not as many employees around anymore and all that kind of stuff, right? So there is quite a bit of that. But also, here's something else that I was hella sarcastic showing the professional Russian slap fighting competitions, but I will say that, like, it does feel good to win. I just hope the energy still is still there. Like you guys were saying, hey, listen, I don't like. I agree with you. I don't trust them because they've already shown their hand. They already don't want us. They already don't want the community to be involved in whatever project that they are going to start, and they wanted to shut off competition because we are, in some ways, in their eyes, competition to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Now, we've already seen this start to happen with Magic the Gathering, which is another $1 billion industry that they already own. And they've already, like, we're going to overproduce cards and we're going to make this overpriced card thing. What was it, like $1,000 box of cards or something like that that you couldn't even use or play and whatnot? Crazy. But at least that's what I heard. I'm not a Magic the Gathering aficionado, but they're already pissed off over there. And even Magic the Gathering creators are we're talking about what Hasbro's been doing with their role playing games selections. But I will say that concerning, yeah, uh, Zamara says the fact that the Creative Commons is far more open than the open gaming license is why I considered myself kneecapped by Hasbro when they capitulated. They went above and beyond what was expected in their apology, and I think we all knew it because they even released the statement talking about the percentages of, 88% of the people hate the new OGL, 95% of the people hated the way they did it, 87% didn't want them to change the SRD. I They had to. Even though I know a lot of people said, well, as long as they add the word irrevocable, I'm fine. No, no, no. They had to do something. They literally had to put it in the Creative Commons, I feel, because we would never trust them rewriting their own legal document because we would take it apart and presume that they put a loophole in there based on their desires, whereas by attaching it to Creative Commons 4.0, it's out of their hands and in the hands of, it's not in anyone's hands, it exists. Sorry, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm coming down with something, my nose is itching, sorry about that. But yeah, I I think that I think they had to do that in order for us to trust what they did. Otherwise, we would just keep dragging them through the mud. Like, oh, it sounds nice, but they probably mean something else. Or and they remember. I don't know if Kyle Brink probably came in and was hired to like, could you fix this, please? Or could you add your name to something and fix this? And he probably said, yeah, they already saw through what we were going to do when they changed the definition of irrevocable in what do they call it, OGL 1.2 or something. So I think they had to, Z. And I yeah, I agree with you. Like they went above and beyond what was expected for an apology. I think they I think they are both apologizing truly, and I think they're also going like, we need to wash our hands of this immediately. Like we don't want them talking about it. We don't want them dragging our name through the mud. We don't want them over analyzing it. We don't I think I think as a company from well above, they're screaming, shut this down now. Death Angel says Clownfish had been talking about packaging issues, pieces missing, poor quality, paint jobs, etc. Hasbro claims the packaging changes were for environmental reasons. Yeah, you could say that, but there's always a way. You could still use plastic and get around it. Like put a big green sticker on the bottom with a circular icon going like "Please recycle." Right? That wouldn't be. They could still use plastic, and it wouldn't be their fault. Or use a smaller plastic window instead of blister packing it, just make a big square box with a window on the inside of it or something. I don't know. Yeah, but there's all kinds of things around it, and a lot of it's cost savings. How much does plastic cost? How much does paper cost? How many of those items can you stack together on a pallet where the volume of the packaging costs you more to use maybe a cube than it would be to use a blister pack or something. There's all kinds of weird things like that. Damaged products and stuff. But if you use cheaper materials, toys become cheaper, they lose value, people stop buying them, word spreads, you know, that's also terrible too, right? Uh, yeah. Tomorrow says, by the way, I will still be creating my roll D6 rule set. Okay. Oh, of course. You better. I will still try and take some of the land from WoTC. I just won't be as forward and greedy now. In fact, I'm trying to run playtests now. You know what? I hope I hope the inquisitive desire that a lot of us have in the RPG community that emotion, that vigilance, that desire keeps us going like, I wonder what that game system's like, or what's that around the corner, or I've never heard of a D12 dice pool system. I wonder what that's about. Or the fantasy age, that's a 3D6 system or 2D6 plus 1D6. Wonder what that's about. And when they see other people coming up with their own systems, maybe there will be less fear from players, and maybe we can start to convince players that don't don't get attached too much to the mechanisms. Just get attached to the theme or the genre or the setting or you know the feeling of what you're playing. Like, hey, we want to play a noir style game with rainy streets and smoking cigarettes and wearing fedoras. And you go, great, okay, we've got plenty of games for that. You know, Kyle replaced Ray back in October when Ray departed mysteriously. Oh, Kyle Brink. I don't know where he came from. They say that he wasn't there very long. I made it. I was actually being sarcastic when I mentioned like, well, we don't really know how long he was. He could have been working in sanitation. I don't know this guy. From what I hear across the board, they say that he's a really nice guy, and I know a lot of people are very pissed off at Wizards of the Coast because they are controlled by Hasbro. But I think there's a lot of baseline employees that didn't know this was going to happen at all, and they just got caught up in it. Now, I mean, are there some that are like, you know, the idea that they should all quit and all that kind of stuff? You try living in Seattle, Washington, and quit your job and try to survive off of like DoorDash or something. It's pretty difficult. So I think that's unreasonable. But as far as the inner workings, I would love to find out. I think we're going to find out sooner than later what was going on internally. I think that's because I always believed where some were saying, "Oh, Hasbro leaked this new OGL to test the waters," and I always thought that an employee leaked it and was like, "This is bullshit," and just leaked it out there. That's what I always imagined, and what I felt was probably the easiest thing because let's be honest, it only takes about 5 seconds for somebody to leak something on social media. You know, a few people to start talking, and then somebody throws it on their Insta or their Snap, Snap books and their Facegrams or something. It doesn't take too much energy for someone internally to go f this, I'm out, and then just leak it and go about their business and find another job. So yeah. John Wright says, who's also a co-host like the rest of you guys, this is also a win for us in the sense that since they couldn't shut down their competition to monopolize the market, now they will be forced to make better products to beat their competition. Ooh, that's weird. That's how you mean make a better product that people would like over another product? I don't know. That sounds like crazy talk, right? Like I said, they didn't need to come after us to do their thing. They could have just created a sweet virtual tabletop. They could have created an excellent play tested sixth edition. They could have done all this and not worry about anybody else. And guess what? Before this happened, uh, Hasbro slash WoTC, your competitors were making products for your own fifth edition. Monty Cook Games put out Numenera and other products for fifth edition. Pathfinder was going back in their archives of Nethys and re-releasing their adventure paths for fifth edition. So notice how that disappeared? Yes, I said the snap books and the interfaces. Yeah. I think what did I say? Whatever. I don't know what the hell. Thanks, Z. All right, Death's Angel's Shadow says, I absolutely think the creative folks were blindsided. Cal and a small cabal, on the other hand, had been planning this for some time. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. They got lawyers and got it drafted, and they thought we would just go like, duh, we would, even though rules lawyering is with a thing in the community. They were like, "Oh, it's a document. I guess we'll sign it. Either sign it or be scared." I think either of those two, they were hoping. I think they would hope that none of us would ever. I think they were hoping we would be scared off, and none of us would sign it, and we would just shut down and shut up. And role playing games would literally be 99% synonymous with Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Archive says an important thing to remember is that almost every single developer at Wizards of the Coast got their job off having uh, critical OGL 1.0A credits. Yeah, on their resume. Can we let's repeat that again? An important thing to remember is that almost every single developer at WoTC got their job off of having critical OGL 1.0A credits on their resume. Yeah. Okay. So I posted on social media, Facebook, whatever. I said the dream was a lot of us, whether we think of it or not, we do have a dream of ourselves rising, being a creative artist. And it can be very difficult, whether it's dance or music or painting or uh, game development. But one of those desires was to move up into role playing games and being creative that way. And the dream was you would start as a player. And this is, and in many ways, this is the steps you would go through. You would be a player, then you become a storyteller, a dungeon master, some sort, right? And then after that, you start to produce a little bit of content. Maybe you do 1 or 2 page things. You create a subclass or monsters. Maybe you become a content creator, like doing videos or a blog. You start a blog, and you get maybe then after that you get hired to do things because someone sees what you do. So you get hired on as a freelancer, and then you get your name and credits, and eventually you put out a large some kind of large third party supplement, maybe a book or a setting or something like that. And eventually you get noticed by Wizards of the Coast and they draw you up and you get invited, or you take the next step and you go, I'm going to get a job there. And that used to be the steps. That's how they had on the job training before they were even hired. So, yes, Archive, that's exactly what it was. And I haven't even finished the comment yet. Anyway, um, A&O goes on to say, so almost all of them were incredibly likely to be sympathetic to the OGL. Duh. Where would Crawford be without Blue Rose? Not working at WotC. That's where. Would Merles, yep, Mike Merles, have ever been hired without Iron Heroes? Nope. And a lot of those people, and there's a cycle, right? Because a lot of them work there and then they'd leave. And guess what? They then go to other game companies. I'm looking at you, Monty Cook. I'm looking at you, Matt Colville. I'm looking at you, and using the OGL, create their own products and companies and systems and stuff to then create a system where even more people could learn on the job using the OGL to get credit, to move up, to be recognized, to then be pulled into the fold of WotC, to then become a name that people recognize, to then leave and you become a brand unto yourself. And that cycle, that was the cycle. That's they did not realize that. How do you not know that? God, in 5 minutes you realize that. You just looked around. Zamar says, I will be honest, D&D may be big enough that they can't afford to slow down their production for quality. Ooh. I've been going back to AD&D books for the last 2 years. They are far more full of content. You know what? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most beautiful failures, and I don't have all of the 5e books. I honestly haven't collected a lot of them. Was Spelljammer. I think Spelljammer, if you glance at Spelljammer, it is a beautiful set of books. 3 books, hardback, sitting together up on a bookshelf. You pull a book down, you skim through it. It's beautifully laid out, and it doesn't have anything in it. I mean, it does, but it's like, was it worth it? You could have released this on PDF in a UA. Oh. Shadow's like, I'll bet nobody in that cabal ever was a DM for players. Yeah, they would have figured you know what? All they had to do is open up the front page of, I don't know, maybe 10 random Dungeons and Dragons books and look to see who wrote them. and realize that there's a number of names down in those books. I Yeah, Drew. Yep, yep, yep. Samara says, and better made content in my and better made Oh, I didn't finish your comment. So you said they're far more full of content, had better made content, in my opinion, and a lot of it was because of better DM support rather than just options to appease players. They dropped the ball on that one. They looked at the money, they saw how many players were buying things, and they just gave big middle fingers to the DMs like F you, when they could have just easily, with a little bit of thought, going, okay, here's five new options for players. And in the the beginning of the book, the sexy stuff. And at the end of the book for DMs go, hey DMs, if you allow these options, here are pitfalls, ways to deal with it. New Maybe start to break some of the artificial scarcity that's in Dungeons and Dragons, meaning like more things that do psychic damage or thunder damage, or more things that do force damage. Like they could have manipulated, in a good way, manipulated the game world setting so that as player options were created, you had equal and opposite challenges, I'll say, that dungeon masters could put up against those issues. Like, hey, here's silvery barbs, or what's the spirit guardians or something, and then here are the monsters and traps and environments and ways to deal with such a thing. Monsters that, I don't know, like, I always felt, yeah, each book is 60 pages of like blankness. I think they're whoever does their layout, and the fact that they have such a large group of artists makes those books seem a lot better than they are. I still like Spelljammer, and I like the setting, and they already printed out Spelljammer material, which they could have copy and pasted, rewrote it, filled out some things. Yeah, the Hodozi. So Druden brings up Spelljammer is the one that had the Hadozi, or Hadozi, or depends on where you want to place your emphasis on which syllable. But yeah, that's the one that had the Hadozi. And the very quickly, the problem with the Hadozi, and I'm pronouncing it that way, was that it wasn't one thing, it was a string of things that existed from the past when they just copy and pasted the origins and the background and where the Hadozi come from. That was the issue, that no one read through it and went, ooh, this is problematic. So it wasn't that they were flying monkeys, but once you start stacking up, like, oh, they're sentient flying monkey people. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. And they were once enslaved. Problem. Okay, we'll let that go. And they were released from slavery by like a singular wizard or something, which in my mind just kept thinking of like Abraham Lincoln. But I'm like, oh, okay. And they lost their home. They were snatched away from their homeland, and they can't go back. And like, all right. And they love serving people on ships. They love being in servitor roles. And by the way, they also like being in entertainment and minstrels. And it's like, okay, oh fuck, y'all couldn't have spread this bullshit to any of the other races in Spelljammer. And it was just like, really. They didn't free themselves. They have to be shucking and jiving on Spelljammer ships and love to serve people. I'm just like, come on now. You had to put all that together as one. And for people who aren't, there are already people who treat me as if I'm a Hadozi already. I don't need that to be in a book and role play that out, right? Like they could have modified or changed the background, or spread some of those elements to other races and things. Like, why weren't the Thri-kreen, I don't know, imprisoned? Or why don't the ooze people, I can't remember their names, why aren't the ooze people happy to serve their masters or something? I don't know. It's weird. Mike says WoTC products are poorly made. Yeah. I've been in the printing industry for 38 years. He sure has. The press errors, poor bindery, lackluster editing, their business practice just caught up with their with their quality control. Yeah. Yeah, I guess they felt like, oh, if they buy our books, there's no chance they're actually going to use them. They haven't seen RPG books, have they? With the coffee stains and the Cheetos dust on them, people writing in the margins and stuff. Yeah. Oh man. Zamar says players are the lifeblood of a system, yes, but the DMs are your organs, which makes the system the bones and the setting the skin. Ooh, we got to make a T-shirt out of that. Z, you're always dropping stuff like that. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to argue with you there a little bit, Death Angel. They did. Actually, they actually edited the information of the Hadozi recently. There's a full one. There, I wish I could get the archive of the podcast where they read out the Hadozi information from Spelljammer. Um, yeah, I think they just kept stacking. It doesn't take too much, but if you so let's say someone created, the flying monkeys, right, and didn't add any background, and then somebody else comes along and adds a little bit more information. Yeah, let's flesh them out. And then somebody else comes along and adds a little bit more information, and no one went back through it and went, "This isn't anybody. Doesn't anybody think this is a little bit, problematic?" And no offense to anybody out there, but if you aren't a person of color, you may not see it because it wouldn't confront you to compare it to real life, right? That's and that might have been the issue. Archive says this is one element I like about Paizo. They always include they always include DM support in their books. Shit, Dark Archives came out with a mini adventure in every chapter to demonstrate how the options in that chapter could be used. That is one thing that's one thing that the that Paizo does excellently. It's like they support their DMs a lot, and I think that's probably going to keep them as they steal market share from WoTC. I think that's going to keep them out there. Is just putting out like excellent books. I just can't pick up everything all the time. Yeah. Oh, talking about the quality control. Yeah. Shadow says, yeah, by comparison, every third party book I've bought is way better quality than WoTC. My Goodman Games 5e OER books are awesome. And it's margins, right? Cheaper glue, bidding on producing the books, signing contracts with uh, printing houses to produce a number of books, probably in the thousands or tens of thousands. By cheapening the quality, they can put out the books and then get a higher profit margin on them, rather than what they don't um, what they don't understand is that the other part of consumerism isn't just cheapness, it's paying for quality. And we pay for Kickstarters of a higher value because we know the quality is there. Therefore, we pay for it again. Again, not thinking that people who pay for books, especially like hardbound, ribboned books, sleeved leatherette bound books or whatever, we'll pay the extra cost because we want to keep them for a long time. We want them to have like quality in them. It's so stupid. I'm gonna read your comment there, Z. I'm probably gonna end it on that too, because I know you got another part coming in. Oh man, Mike says, printing border marked backgrounds on pages that resemble coffee rings would be a step up from black vertical press marks. Yep, crooked pages. I've seen those vertical press marks. Yep, and bindery glue that breaks the second you open it. Yeah, open. Yeah. Okay, so uh Zamar disagrees with me. Okay. All right. So Zamar says, DBJ, I will disagree there. There are enough people talking about the issues with the history of Black people that it would be fairly obvious when a race starts being comparable. Comparable. Yeah. On the other hand, people have been crying wolf enough with enough people counter crying conspiracy that the average person is losing the ability to properly see it without aid. Yeah, I didn't want to. Okay, maybe I'm being backwardsly being a little too nice about the issue, but the the issue isn't necessarily. It's a little deeper than um, the Hadozi. It go and what I mean by go is deeper than a Hadozi. It's knowing that a company doesn't have the wherewithal to notice their own mistakes and then blame us, the community, for that we're going to make those same mistakes. When the what is it, the NFTs and the problematic materials and all that, and it's like we've policed our own community. It's you that haven't policed your own staff and your own materials to read through it and go, I don't know. This to me, this sounds odd. Let's be a little bit more creative with what we're doing and come up with something better, right? Like, and for as a person of color who reads this kind of thing, like the Hadozi itself, could I get past it? And some people would say, get over it. It's not a big deal. And I'm going, sure, if it's an I, if this was a singular one off, I would go, this person or individuals or whatever didn't mean anything by it. And I actually think I pretty much believe people did that without knowingly doing it. I don't think there's a cabal of people going like wringing their hands like, ha ha ha, ha, I've got scissors and a white sheet. I can't wait. No, 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 no. But like you said, Zamar, when you're talking about, somewhat disagreeing with me, you're basically saying like there's enough people out there that they could run this by and go, hey, am I missing something? Does this sound problematic? And then, but that also means leadership and um yeah, as far as I can agree with that counterpoint wholeheartedly too. Yeah, I mean, but then again, if your staff is too scared to say something, or you don't have a mechanism in place where one of your staff members raises their hand and says, "Hey, boss, I'm reading this material and it sounds problematic. Can I write another 750 words to replace it?" And a boss looks at it and goes, "Well, shit, yeah." You know what I mean? That has to do with leadership, that you don't, even your own staff may be too afraid or too busy, or you don't have enough people to do proper editing, like or quality control, like Mike's talking about with the printing. If you don't have enough time to go, or even enough power to go to your printers and go, this this glue you're using, the paper quality, the printing quality, we can't stand for this, do better, or you don't have our business, right? That starts at the top. So yeah, John Rice says every DM starts off as a player who doesn't buy every book and accessory, but once they really catch the bug and want to graduate up to DM hood, they then start to buy everything available. Yeah, yeah, and then move up from there, creating your own stuff, your own materials. We start out going like, I wrote 15 pages of background for my setting. Come on, players, read it. And getting our feelings hurt because nobody wants to go past the first two paragraphs or something. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there making like World Anvil, 50-page World Anvil worlds, and using, what is it, Obsidian Portal and a bunch of these things. Yeah, yeah, Z, yeah. And listen, you could disagree all the hell you want to. Yeah, yeah. A generation of A generation force fed reality TV have lost their wish to think critically. Misinformation and backdoor hate speech now live in the open under free speech provisions. This has bled into RPGs with Hadozi Yazarian as one example. And I would say this, okay? Talking about what Mike is just bringing up is that the counter argument to what I'm talking about with problematic material, and people are like, "Oh, it's all woke culture and all that, whatever," right? My counter argument to people that are against woke culture is this: um, while nothing that is in the extreme ever works. It doesn't matter what side of an issue you are. It, dieting, extreme weather. No extreme ever is good for anybody. Okay, but let me say that there would be no impetus for people to shove what people call wokeism down other people's throats if it wasn't for people who are then on the opposite side trying to defend problematic issues in the first place. Now, there are people who say, well, it's not problematic, and they say to me. And I would counter the fact that, but some things aren't about you and whatever you means to you, right? There are there are issues happening in the Jewish community. I'm not Jewish. I don't know what those issues are, but that doesn't mean those issues don't exist, and it has nothing to do with me. Um, the world is so huge; it's not limited. Adding artwork of people that look like me, adding materials into games to express other cultures doesn't take anything away from you. And as a matter of fact, every time this situation comes up and people scream the world is falling, nothing's changed. Back when Pathfinder Paizo put out a statement saying that we're going to stop using, basically all white guy artwork and chainmail bikinis, people got in an uproar. Um, Guess what happened? Mm, you could probably say it's the second. It was the second most popular and maybe one of the best written role playing games that went into a second edition ever created. And it's Dungeons and Dragons basically, except we just call it Pathfinder. It used to be called 3.75. It Nothing happened. So think no one's taking anything from someone else. Now I'll argue. I will agree with you that sometimes people use it as the, it's like the person who runs around bragging about how much they help the homeless or how much they're constantly dieting or how much like the way somebody does something is different than the purpose of what somebody how somebody does something. So I would which is why starting not tomorrow, but February 1st, I'm going to start spotlighting games that are BIPOC friendly, that are Black and Indigenous people of color friendly, which is not, it's not this, white people shouldn't play this game, which is fucking bullshit, right? But it's not also like, I don't understand why DBJ hates Eurocentric games. He acts like it's a thing. No, 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 no. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how some games, whether the writers intended to or not, how some of these games really create an environment where other cultures and people can really add um, um, their own way of life, their own lifestyles that you may not be familiar with, but into a game and go, wow, this is kind of cool. And Samara's talking about adding 30 pages of background information on my world and growing daily. Better to overwrite than underwrite, right? So let's leave it on that. You know what? We won. I'm so happy we won. I, I don't know if you call it winning, but yeah, we won. The whole thing, it's awesome. Okay, the SRD is now in the Creative Commons. For those who don't know, the sister reference document is sweet because it has all the information. You can make your own games about it. The You only have a small paragraph that you have to put in the back of any product you're trying to lay out, and so it's kind of cool. But I will say this. Yeah, we won, but guess what? Now more than ever is a great time to produce anything you're trying to produce, learn any new games, and be ever vigilant. We don't trust Hasbro at, at any point now. They lost my trust in them, so we have to stay vigilant. And so I feel like, despite the fact that we won, we can't rest on our laurels. Now that the evil emperor has died and Sauron's eye winked out of existence, now we got to start feeding the people and building roads and doing the hard work, the not so sexy stuff in the tabletop RPG community, which is supporting third party publishers, bringing back dead games, supporting new games today, supporting third party publishers who are producing fifth edition material, because I can guarantee it. Maybe it's not so much a guarantee. I'm with you guys. I don't think there's even going to be an OGL or an SRD at all, or even a Creative Commons for the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I think they're done with us, and I think Hasbro will just go, we're going to do our own virtual tabletop, and you will have no part in it, which is perfectly fine with us. Leave us with the game, and that's it. Archive says, and I don't see that shift in Pathfinder content made things way better. Um, Nick Nick Ticola went from the generic demon lord of not wearing any clothes to actually compelling to compelling goddess. I butchered that name, but yeah, I don't know the lore, but I get it, right? Yeah, thing and the thing is that there's no you can't we don't have to have a limit on creativity, a limit on put guardrails up for people to be involved in things. I haven't brought up, but there's all kinds of stuff like bards, paladins, monks, um, wizards are actually, whether you know it or not, they're guardrails that you kind of have to. You got to like remove. You got to strip away paladinism to say make a samurai, right? You got to strip away monkism to make a pugilist, which when you attach a cultural thing to something, people are like, well, I don't understand, you could make anything you want, sure, but a fighter doesn't have a cultural background that you have to navigate through to get to where you want to get to. So there are things like that that are don't seem problematic on its own, but when you keep stacking things together, it's like, there are cultures around the world that have arcane casters in their fictional history, but that aren't wizards. You know what I mean? Zara says, does that mean that we will be covering the RPG Pundits book? It's great and filled with good cultural information. He is controversial. I don't know. I don't I don't have that book, but I'll look into it. And I know RPG Pundit can be a little bit kind of like Indestructible as well. And there's some others out there that are controversial in the way that they present themselves. Um, their controversy doesn't bother me, but some people might go, well, some people have the attitude like if I mention them and I'm not critical of somebody, then I'm tantamount promoting them, which it's neither one or the other. So I don't know. They don't. None of those institutions bother me. It's just them. Mike says, the one thing that will change at my table is this. After writing for my homebrew world of Thole for 8 years, I'm writing for something new, and this will break from 5e. WotC can actually take credit for fresh world building. Have they really? I don't. Have they ever done that? Middle Earth was still destroyed long after Sauron lost. Yep. Well, maybe they should have started building roads and feeding the people and stuff. John Wright says in first edition AD&D introduced the Gith Yankee in the Fiend Folio. Oh, I remember that book. That used to be enslaved by the Illithids, but they fought back and emancipated themselves. That's a good way to cover slavery and evil to be ended. Yeah, listen. I always felt like the whole idea of you know, orcs being bestial, evil, monstrous race up till now. I was like, leave the history, just forward it to now. Maybe the elves were promoting this terrible history of them being monstrous and evil, and we shouldn't trust them this entire time. Meaning, like it's literally already in Dungeons and Dragons history because of the fight with Grumsh and I can't remember the elven gods' names. Oh, they're but you get my point. Maybe the elves have been doing this the entire time, or there was a high elf, gray elf nation, or whatever, high elf nation or something that was promoting, and they were so long lived they could keep promoting this propaganda that all the orcs were evil, and it's like no, they weren't. Maybe they were defending us from. They were living in the beast lands or the monster lands or something, defending society this entire time, right? You don't know. Mike says changing standardized class terms isn't that hard. Terms like warrior, priest, shaman, mystic, etc. can apply to many cultures, not just Eurocentric. That's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's just a matter of like, are okay, maybe what I'm going to say is a little problematic, but maybe a paladin is instead an oath keeper. Oops, oops. In a modern context, that might not be a good thing. But you get my point, right? Like maybe not a bard, but a storyteller or a speaker or lore keeper, so, like you know what I mean. There's Corlon Lotharian. That's it. Sheesh. Thanks. Hope for the best. Hope for the best. Jumping in at the very end, like elven propaganda sounds tight. So it must have been very difficult to convince the entire tabletop RPG community that orcs are evil. Nope, barely an inconvenience. Right? I gotta do the head nod, right? Elven propaganda sounds tight. Zealot, yeah, zealot. Yep. Uh, yeah, paladin equals zealot. Yeah, I mean, monk is like a pugilist or mystic. I know my orc lore, son. Hey, Druden, the elven gods aren't just forgettable, man. It's just like you have to have like 5 syllable words for all their names and stuff. Yeah, and they're ever changing, which is another thing too, right? Like, people will complain about like LBGTQ or quilt bag issues and stuff, and I'm like, you do realize that it already exists because Corlan Lotharian and a bunch of the elven gods actually had flowing fluid genders because they were chaos. Anybody remember that? Anybody remember? Anyway, so we're going to go through it and listen. If it's problematic, if some of the information we go over in it won't be the whole month of February, it'll be about 2 weeks or so. Is problematic, yeah, just tune out. No big deal. But I would love to have your information here. What's going to probably happen, or what I'm setting up, is you won't see my face. I will have PDFs available, so I'll be scrolling through them as well as the physical books with my camera pointed down or maybe over my shoulder. Probably point it down, and you'll see I'll bookmark everything and flip through. So we'll get to take a look at some of these games. And like I said, there are a number of games where the writers didn't intend for them to be part of the way I'm judging them, but I think they're cool the way they are, and it'll surprise you. And I'm going to throw in. There's actually some games in there that have nothing to do with like um, African or African American culture, but they are great products that really embrace or emulate or have a space for other world cultures that we may not even think of, that are like, oh wow, that's kind of different, or that government style is weird, or that culture is kind of strange. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Corlon could change his sex at will. That's canon as of, oh, let me see. The start of D&D. Yeah, yeah. Anybody remember that? No, not really. Anyway, guys, I got to get out of here. Got to get to work. My job's around the corner. Got to go carry the mail. There's not too many of us. By the way, for those who live in the states, nationwide, we gotta. I'm gonna put this out there. Nationwide, we have a shortage of letter carriers. First day starting, you get full benefits. Um, you guys are going over the elven gods, goddesses. Yeah. Oh man. Slenish. It's a pleasure. Oh, Illustrate, is it? Oh man. No, thank you. If you have a high school diploma and you're looking to make upwards of 150 grand plus a year, and invest some time in it, you could be a letter carrier. Be a letter carrier. Oh, please don't call me a Chad. I don't have a chin like that. Oh man. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. Thank you so much for being part of the show. We're going to take us out. Peace.